So a lot of people like to read for fun, for enjoyment, for relaxation, and I love to read. And one of the things that I look for when I'm reading a book is that it is something that has a happy ending. I love a happy ending. So today we are going to be reading one of the great love stories, and I will give you a spoiler, it has a happy ending. It ends in marriage and love and all of the great things that make you feel real good. And while this is a great love story that does end in marriage, I think one of the best parts of this love story is not the romantic love between a woman and a man, but it is the love between a woman named Naomi and her daughter-in-law Ruth, and the love that Ruth has for Naomi and the way she shows that to her. So let's turn to the Book of Ruth, and we're just going to get into it. We're going to see an example of commitment and heart and love that Ruth has. And it is a great story of redemption. So there are some things that go wrong, and you see how God just brings redemption to this life, this family's life. And that's something that's relatable. We've all done things that maybe we've needed to see redemption in our lives. So it's a really exciting book, and we're going to pick it up right in the very first chapter, Ruth chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land. And a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, was to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. So there was a famine in the land of Palestine. And there's this man, his name is Elimelech, and he's got his wife Naomi and their 2 sons, and they're from the city Bethlehem, which was of the tribe Judah. So that's one of the 12 tribes. Verse 2. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there. So these people are going to a place where there is food because there's a huge famine in their land, and they don't want to starve to death. But something that's important to know as we're going through this is that the land Moab, or the people of the Moabites, is actually known for turning their back on God. So in the time of Moses, they really turned their back on him and the man of God and just God completely. And they took up worshiping many gods and idolatry. So these are people that are not known to be good, God-believing people. And that's something that's going to be important to keep in your mind as we read this record. But again, this is a time of famine, and this is a man who loves his family, and there's just nothing that you won't do most of the time to keep your family alive. So here he takes them. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her 2 sons. So her husband dies, and she's just got her 2 sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. So, if you live in a place and you want to get married, you marry the people that are there. So they marry these women. And the name of one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. And Mahlon and Chilion died, also both of them. And the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. So my heart just breaks for Naomi. Here's this woman, and she's got this husband who's doing whatever he can for his family, and he dies. And that is hard, but she has her 2 sons. And in the Bible culture in the East, her sons would take care of her. They would be the ones to make sure she had a place to live, to provide for her. That would all be taken care of for her. And now her 2 sons have died. And I can't truly even let my mind imagine the heartache that a mother would feel to lose her 2 sons. And so now she's left without them and without anyone to take care of her and provide for her. Verse 6. Then she, this is Naomi, arose with her daughters-in-law, that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab how the Lord had visited his people, giving them bread. So she heard that the famine is over, and she wants to go back home now. She doesn't want to stay in this foreign place without her husband or without her son, her sons in a place, that has turned their backs on God. So verse 7, she went forth out of the place where she was, and her 2 daughter-in-laws with her, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. And Naomi said unto her 2 daughters-in-law, Go, return each to your mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me." So she tells her daughters-in-law that they should go back home. She can't take care of them. She has no means to provide for them. And she's leaving this land. This is the land where their families are. And she says, go back. And she, gives them a blessing. "May God deal with you kindly as you have dealt with me and my sons." So you get the impression that they were kind women, that they were these wonderful women, and that she loved them. And so she wasn't sending them away because she just didn't want to see them or they reminded of her sons. She just wanted what was best for them. Verse 9, "The Lord grant you that you may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband," so your next husbands. "Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice, and they wept." So she tells them to go back, and she hopes for them that they'll be able to remarry and find rest. She wants nothing but good things for them, and they all must love each other very, very much, because this is a big emotional time, and I just picture them just standing there on this road back to Judah, and that they're just holding each other, and it says they wept, they cried together. Verse 10, "And they said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people. And Naomi said, Turn again, my daughters. Why will ye go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands?" So there's a custom in the East called constraining. And that is where you'll ask someone the same thing 3 times. And, if they really don't want to, they have these outs. And so she tells them to go back, and they say, "No, we'll come with you." And she tells them again, and she gives them this reason. She says that, she's too old to have any more children and to have a husband. And she says, even if she could have more sons, verse 13, "Would you tarry for them till they were grown? Would ye stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me." So there's a custom in the East, in this land of the Bibles, where if a woman's husband dies and he has a brother, that brother would marry her, and he would take care of her, and they would have a child together, and they would raise up seed to the person who has died. And if that brother died, then the next one, and so on. And what she's saying to them is that she has no husband to have another child with. And even if she could find someone to marry her that day, and she could have a baby and it was a son, are they going to wait all of those years for that child to become a man to marry them? No, that doesn't make any sense. So, she tells them all of that. And she offers them, this out again. "And they lifted up their voice, and they wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her." So they cry again. This is hard for all of them. They love each other. But the one girl, she decides to go. And the other, Ruth, she cleaves unto Naomi. She stays with her. And she said, "Behold," Naomi is saying this to Ruth, "thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law." So, not only did she go back to her people, but she went back to this land of false gods. And she's turned her back on the real God. Verse 16, "And Ruth said, Entreat me not to leave thee. Stop asking, or return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God shall be my God." And here's where you really start to see Ruth. You start to see her heart. You start to see who she is. She loves Naomi, and she loves God. And she's not going to turn her back on either of them. And she says, you can stop constraining me. You can stop asking. I'm with you. "Where thou diest, I will die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me." She is saying she is committed. She is 100% sold out to staying with Naomi and to staying with the one true God. She said, nothing is going to separate us but death. Me and you, we're for life. And, it just goes to show how much love that there is between the two of them, this relationship that they have. And verse 18, When this is Naomi, saw that Ruth, was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her. And someone said that she was annoyed with her, that she really was trying to get rid of them, and she was just like, I'm not even going to talk to her anymore. And that is not what this is saying. What it's saying is she stopped asking her to go back. Naomi realized that Ruth was committed to her, that she was committed to God, and so she didn't ask anymore for her to go away from her. Verse 19, so they too went until they came to Bethlehem. And it came to pass, when they were come to Bethlehem, that all the city was moved about them, and they said, is this Naomi? And she said unto them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty hath dealt bitterly with me. So she returns, and she's been gone for 10 years. And when she left, she went out full. She went out with a husband, and she went out with her 2 kids. And, she probably had hope that there was going to be food. And they haven't seen her in this place for 10 years. So she's aged, and, she came back kind of empty. And so they don't recognize her. They're saying, is that you, Naomi? And she says, I'm not Naomi anymore. Because Naomi in the Bible means peaceful, and it means pleasant. And she's saying, I am not that anymore. She's saying, call me Mara. And that means injured or hurt or bitter. And so she's saying, I'm not what I was when I saw you last. I am hurt. I am raw. And I'm not the same anymore. So, you see just how she feels right now. I went out full, and the Lord hath brought me home again empty. Why then call me Naomi, seeing the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab. And they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. So they're kind of starting this new life together. But remember, women in the East, they could not have jobs. They could not own land. They could not make decisions. They needed a man to do those things. So they're in a tough spot right now. And we've got to just see what God is going to do to get them through this situation. Chapter 2, verse 1. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, let me now go to the field and glean ears of corn after him, in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, go, my daughter. So you have to understand what gleaning is to really understand what's happening now. So this is the time of harvest. There are crops that are growing in the fields, and there are servants and farmhands who are going out, and they're picking all these crops. And it was a custom that you would leave a little bit behind for people who didn't have food. This was a way to provide that the people had their needs met, that there wasn't anyone that was starving. So it was okay after the guys had kind of gone through, they leave a little for people to go and glean or gather up what's left. So if there's an ear of corn left, you can pluck that and take it home for you. And that's not stealing or anything like that. That's okay. So Ruth says, I'm going to go out in these fields and I'm going to get us some food. I'm going to get a way to, take care of us and provide for us. Maybe they could trade some of the stuff that they glean for other things they need. And she says that she wants to go out and she wants to find grace. So we're going to see what happens. Verse 3, and she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging to Boaz, this kinsman, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and said unto the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they answered him, the Lord bless thee. So just like in any great story, here she is the day she goes out. Boaz comes along, our hero of the story, and he comes out and he sees the guys working in his field, and you see the kind of man he is. He's not just like, get back to work, what's going on? But he greets them with love. He says, the Lord be with you. And they answered him, the Lord bless thee. You can tell already that he is a good, kind man. And then Boaz said unto his servant that was set over the reapers, whose damsel is this? So Ruth's out there, she's gleaning, and she catches his eye, and he's like, who's that girl out there? What's going on?" And so the servant kind of tells the story. And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, it is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. And she said, "I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves." So she came and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house. So he tells her what's going on and how Ruth is out here and what's going on. And we get to see how Boaz feels about this. Then Boaz said unto Ruth, "Hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens." So he tells her that he doesn't want her to go anywhere else. Like, you don't need to go find other fields. You're welcome to just glean in my fields all the time. "Let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? And when thou athirst, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn." So he tells her that he's going to make sure that none of the guys are going to bother her, and that she can work in his fields, and if she's thirsty, she can just help herself to the vessels of water. She's just got free reign to do whatever she needs to do and just go out and be blessed here. So he's very kind to her. In verse 10, this is Ruth, "And she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, Why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing am I a stranger?" She's just so kind and tender-hearted, and this just touches her so deeply that Boaz said this to her, and that she has found grace with him. And she had told Naomi that she was setting out to find grace, and yet it's just like so many times we're like believing for something, and then God does it, and you're like, "God, I can't believe you did that thing for me. Like, it's more than I could have imagined. Why would you do that just for me? Like, who am I?" And that's what she's saying to Boaz. She's saying, "This is so kind, but you don't even know me." And Boaz, verse 11, answers and says unto her, "It hath fully been showed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother and the land of thy nativity, and art come unto a people which thou knewest not here therefore." So he said, I heard what you did. I heard how kind you were to your mother-in-law, how you stuck by her, how you left your home and everything you've known so that you could stand by the one true God. And he's impressed. He thinks that's wonderful. He says, verse 12, "The Lord recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust." He recognizes her trust in God, and he just says, that he wants God to just bless her back, that's his hopes for her. And, you just see God's hand in all of this, how he's orchestrating this, how he's taking care of them. Verse 13, "Then she said, Let me find favor in thy sight, my Lord, for that thou hast comforted me, and for that thou hast spoken friendly unto thine handmaid, though I be not like unto one of those of thine handmaidens. And Boaz said unto her, At mealtime come unto hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers, and reached her parched corn, and did eat, and was sufficed, and left. So on top of all of this, he says, you know what else? When it's mealtime, come inside with all the guys, and I want you to have a meal, and eat till your heart's content. And so she goes in, and she eats until she was sufficed, and then she goes back out to work. And when she was risen up to glean, Boaz calls over the guys, the young men, and he says, Hey, let her glean even among the sheaves, and reproach her not. And also let some of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave them, that she may glean them, and rebuke her not. So he says, not only that, but when you guys are out, leave a little more than usual. And if perchance you drop a little bit, don't go back for it. And if she gets up real close to where you guys are working, don't say anything. Just let her be. She's a guest of mine. You let her go about her way. In verse 18, and so she took it up and went into the city. Verse 17. So she gleaned in the field until even, and beat out that she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. So I don't know how much that is, but it's probably a pretty good amount, because she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned and she had brought forth, and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. So Ruth shows Naomi how much she had gathered while gleaning, and she also had tucked away some of that food from her meal for Naomi, which is so kind, and she shares that with her. And so then she tells Naomi what had happened, and she tells her kind of a recount of the day and how she actually met Boaz. And so Naomi tells Ruth, well, Boaz, he's actually related to my husband Elimelech, and he is one of our kin. And she tells Naomi, okay, this is all really good, and I want you to do just what he says. Only pick in his fields from now on. This is good, and stick by him. And so she does, and she gleans in his fields not only for the barley harvest, but also the wheat harvest, which comes after that. So that's about 50 days that she's there doing all of this. We're going to pick it up in chapter 3, verse 1. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said unto her, My daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee, that it may be well with thee? So what she's really doing is she's asking Ruth, shall I seek a marriage for you? That's what that rest is. Should I try to arrange something for you so that you can be taken care of? Verse 2. And now is not Boaz of our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast? Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. So Naomi has, at some point in the last 50 days, concocted this plan, okay? That she's going to try to set things up, a little matchmaking with Ruth and Boaz. Just like any great love story, there's this interest, and she says, this is really good. I want you to, go out and see him. Verse 3, she says, Wash thyself, therefore, and anoint thee, and put thy raiment upon thee, and get thee down to the floor. But make not thyself known unto the man until he shall have done eating and drinking. And it shall be, when he lieth down, that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie, and thou shalt go in and uncover his feet, and lay thee down, and he shall tell thee what thou shalt do. And she, this is Ruth, said unto her, Naomi, all that thou sayest unto me, I will do. So there's a lot that's going on here. Ruth is she's told to get herself cleaned up real nice. Like, get yourself ready, make yourself smell good, make sure that, you don't look like one of the girls just out there working in the field today. And I want you to go to the thrashing floor. And so that is this place where basically, after they've completed their harvest, they're going to separate out the parts of the crop that you want from the parts of the crop you don't want. They're going to separate out, the stem and the leaves and all of that from the part that you want to harvest. And so there are thrashing floors throughout the city. But if a man is very wealthy, he has his own. And Boaz was very wealthy. It's just another indication of how well off he is, that he has his own private thrashing floor. So he has his own, and what they do at the end of the harvest is they go and they get all this done, and it's kind of like all the farm hands are there and the guys are camping out. They're getting this done, and then they sleep there because you want to guard your crop. So everyone knows at the end that you're going to have all this good stuff laying around. So you all sleep there to make sure that it doesn't get stolen. So what Naomi is telling Ruth to do is to stay out of sight, don't get in their way. Women are really not supposed to be there when all of this is going on. But after he's had his meal and he's had his drink, go ahead and I want you to go to where he is and uncover his feet. And so some people read this and they think that something scandalous is going on, but that's not really what's happening. Nothing scandalous is going on, but Naomi is instructing Ruth basically how to ask Boaz if he would marry her, is what this is really signifying. If he will redeem her. This was a custom at that time where you would uncover his feet and lay there where you are requesting a next of kin marriage. And Ruth's reply to Naomi is so beautiful because it shows her great heart and believing. There's more than meets the eye when you first read it. This is a figure of speech. Ruth says, all that thou sayest unto me, I will do. And this is actually a reply that was made to a husband's goodbye to his wife when he left to go prepare a place for them in his father's house after their 1 year of honeymoon. So the husband, after 1 year of honeymoon, he would go to prepare a place for them. And he would say, I will be back. And she would say to him, all that thou sayest unto me, I will do. So Ruth saying that was actually an act of positive believing on her part. She's saying, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to prepare all of this, and he's going to marry me. Like, we're going to have success here. So verse 6, and she went down unto the floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law bade her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn. And she came softly and uncovered his feet and laid her down. So this isn't saying that Boaz was like getting drunk. A lot of people, when they read that, think that he's kind of not in his best state of mind. That's not what it's saying. He's celebrating. So he eats his meal and he has his drink, and he's thankful. He's had probably a great harvest. They've worked hard all season. And so he's just appreciative of all that he has and all that he harvested. And verse 9. So she's laying at his feet, and he said, Who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth, thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. So the word skirt here is mantle. And that's something that the men would cover themselves with at night. And their mantle symbolizes their position. It's an important thing. And so for Boaz to cover her with his mantle, it would show his protection. It would show his acceptance of covering her in marriage, that he would take care of her and take her on. So that's what she's asking him to do. And he said, Blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether poor or rich. So he's saying, you are even more wonderful now than when I met you. And he thought she was wonderful before. And he's saying, you're so thankful and you're so kind. And, he understands what she's asking of him. And he says, you could have gone out and you could have looked for a young man. You could have tried to marry someone else, but you're trying to do things God's way. You're going for the next of kin, following the order that God had set up. And he recognizes that. And verse 11, And now, my daughter, fear not, I will do to thee all that thou requirest, for all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. So I would love to have time to just fully get into that with you. But a virtuous woman is a very specific thing in the Bible, and she is many wonderful things. And it's also how you know that she's not propositioning him or anything inappropriate here, that she's following God's way, because he says you are a virtuous woman. And just a side note, in all of the Old Testament, the only woman identified as a virtuous woman is Ruth. She's the only woman that God calls out and says, this is a virtuous woman. So you know that she must be pretty incredible, that she must be pretty wonderful. Verse 12, And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman. Howbeit there is a kinsman nearer than I. This is the part in the book where you're just like, because you're rooting for them now. And he says, there's someone else, and he's an even closer relative than I. Verse 13, Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman's part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to thee, then will I do the part of a kinsman to thee, as the Lord liveth. Lie down until the morning. So Boaz is fond of Ruth, and he wants to marry her. But he says, in the way that things are done, if this guy wants to take you, if he wants to redeem you and your family, then that's great. But if he doesn't, then I will. I will do that. And he tells her, lie back down and get some sleep. And in the morning, we're going to sort all of this out. So Ruth lays down at Boaz's feet in the morning. He tells her to go before anyone sees her, because, they don't want it to appear that anything improper has happened. And also, she has come to him to request that he marries her. And if it doesn't work out, if she ends up having to marry this other man, she doesn't want there to be any shame on him that it seems like he's denied her. So she goes to leave in the morning, and he tells her to take some barley back home with her to Naomi. Somehow I think he knows that Naomi had her part to play maybe in the schemes of all of this. And she goes back and she tells Naomi what happened, and Naomi tells Ruth, to sit still now, to just rest and be peaceful about it. And she says, Boaz won't rest until he's sorted all of this out. Today, we will have our answers. So we're going to pick it back up in chapter 4, verse 1. Then went Boaz up to the gate and sat him down there, and behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spoke came by, and unto him said, Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. Just like any great book, he just happens to be showing up at this exact time, this other kinsman, and he says, hey, come on over here and sit down at the gate. And he took 10 of the men, of the elders of the city, and said, sit ye down here, and they sat down. So they're going to have an official meeting. This is going to get sorted out kind of all by the book, and they're going to conduct some business. Verse 3, and he said unto the kinsman Naomi, that is come out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise thee, or to tell you about it, saying, buy it before the inhabitants, and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know, for there is none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee. And the man said, I will redeem it. Ooh, okay. But Boaz, he's like, not out of it yet. He says, verse 5, what day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must also buy of it also Ruth of the Moabites, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. So he says, by the way, if you're going to take this land and, it's great land, but with it you have to redeem Ruth, the daughter-in-law of Naomi. She's kind of part of the deal. So are you willing to do that as well? Verse 6, and the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar mine own inheritance. Redeem thou right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. He's like, no, I'm going to pass on that. And it's not said, we don't know why. We don't know, it was a big deal to people that she was a Moabite, that they are people that had turned away from God, and they were known to be a godless people. So maybe if he didn't know her, it was because of that, or maybe he already had his own children, and if he had a child with her, he'd have to split up his inheritance. It's not known why, but we know that he decided that that wasn't something he was willing to take on. And so they perform a custom at the gates to signify that Boaz has agreed and committed to the purchase of the land and to take Ruth as his wife. We're going to go back in verse 12. And where am I? Okay. Verse 10. And moreover, Ruth of the Moabites, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren. And from the gate of this place ye are witness this day. So he's made this deal, and it's official in front of all these people, and he tells them that he's buying this land and he's buying back Ruth. And all of the people that were in the gate and the elders said, we are witness. The Lord make the woman that is come into thine house like Rachel and like Leah, which two did build the house of Israel. And do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem. So the people are offering a blessing right now. They are saying that may she be like Leah and Rachel, and out of them come all of the 12 tribes of Israel, and they are wonderful women. If you haven't read about them in the Bible, I highly recommend at some point that you read the records of them. And verse 12, and let thy house be like the house of Pharez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee, of this young woman. So another blessing, another wonderful woman in the Bible, and another record that I absolutely recommend that you read. So they're giving them this wonderful, kind blessing. So Boaz, verse 13, took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went in unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. So they get married, and they have a son. And the women said unto Naomi, blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. So these women, you remember when Naomi had come back, she saw these women and she said, don't call me blessed, don't call me peaceful or pleasant, call me hurt, call me injured. And they say unto her that she is blessed, and that she's blessed of the Lord, who never turned his back on her. He never left her without hope. That God has redeemed her and let this baby be famous in Israel. Verse 15, and he, the baby, shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age, for thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, has borne him. So sons, we know, were really important in the Old Testament. It was highly beneficial to have 1 son. And she's saying to have Ruth was better than having 7 sons. That she is blessed for this daughter-in-law who has loved God and stuck by her and turned her life around and has given this baby to restore them and to bring joy to their lives and to, grow their family. And he will grow up and he will take care of them and he will give them rest, as the custom is. And Naomi took the child and laid it in her bosom and became nurse unto it. And the women, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, there is a son born to Naomi. Now, it wasn't her son, but it was her daughter-in-law's son, and he was hers too. And they called his name Obed, and he is the father of Jesse, the father of David. And if you know the word of God, you know who Jesse and David are. And you know that David becomes the king, and that God calls David a man after his own heart. And Ruth is King David's great-grandma. That's her family. And out of King David comes Jesus Christ, our Redeemer, our Savior. And it's just so incredible to see the blessings that were bestowed to them. This life that was taken from Naomi, all of the things that she lost, she got back. And she had this wonderful daughter-in-law, Ruth, who had lost so much herself. And she was a wonderful, virtuous woman. And she was redeemed. And her heart and love for God made all the difference. Her commitment to not only Naomi, but to God, it turned everything around. And without that, I don't know what would happen, but I know that with that we have our Savior, Jesus Christ. How every single one of us can be redeemed, bought back from the devil because of Jesus Christ, because of his life, because of what he had for us. And I just love this record because it is a testament to the goodness of God and the way he cares for his people and his faithfulness to those who love him and are committed to him.